What's up, guys? Welcome back to Hollow to Hardwood. And now we are on to our final region, the East region, the region that our Spartans are in, with Duke being the number one overall seed. And naturally, Death, Texas, Michigan State being in Duke's bracket for the 1 millionth time. Uh, you know better than I do because you were the one that pointed out the little post to me. But what was the stats or years, how many consecutive we've been in Duke's?
Yeah, so we have played in Duke's bracket, I believe, in 8 different years in the last 15. Hold on, I'm looking up to get it right. But it was some crazy wow, when did I send it?
Like a
Yeah.
day or two.
So Michigan State has been placed in Duke's bracket in the same region. Um, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven of seven tournaments since 2013.
Wow.
So seven out of the last 13 tournaments.
13. Yeah. So more than half.
Yep. So with one exception was 2015 when we both played each other in the Final Four. So we weren't technically in the same region, but we played each other. But other than that, we've been in the same region as them. We played 4 times, I believe, against them. We're 1-4. With the 2019 we won and lost in
Precious man.
2015, but yeah.
Great.
So
So without further ado, let's get our last region underway. So with the first game, we got the 1 versus 16, Duke versus Siena. Not much talk needs to go into this, so I'm just going to say the Duke Blue Devils will
yeah, I'm
destroy
ready.
Siena. All
Yep.
right. Um, Next game, we got our 8 night matchup. This is the first matchup of the tournament starting tomorrow at 12:15. You got Ohio State versus TCU. So what do you got for that game?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Ohio State for this game. This is the first 8-9 matchup I have where the 8 seed actually wins. All three others, I have the 9 seed winning. I just think Bruce Thornton's playing really well, and I know some people are pretty high on TCU, especially with their some of their non-conference games and how they played against said non-conference games and some other in the Big 12. But I think Ohio State hit their stride at the right time, and with the addition of Evan Mobley back, I think or not Evan Mobley.
John Mobley Jr.
John Mobley, sorry, I was thinking of
Yeah,
NBA.
you're good.
But yeah, with Mobley Jr. coming back, I and Bruce Thornton playing the way he is, I think they hit their stride at the right time.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the picks have been on Ohio State from a lot of the people that I've heard from. Ohio State's playing really good basketball right now. They're back and they're healthy. They played a really tough and close game against Michigan in the quarterfinals. Yeah, that game could have gone either way. It was back and forth, and they competed really well against them. Like you said, they got John Mobley Jr. back, who's a lethal shooter. Devin Royal and Bruce Thornton are playing really good basketball right now. So yeah, give me the Ohio State Buckeyes to move on. And then our next game, we have the 5 versus 12 matchup. We have St. John's versus Northern Iowa.
St. John's is a tough team for me to read. Part of me thinks they're extremely underrated, and the other part of me thinks they're extremely overrated. I just think that throughout the year, they don't have any level of competition really that they play, with the exception of like UConn and Creighton when they're good occasionally, and Marquette. But this team's
This
tough
year,
to read.
it's yeah,
I think. But the other part of me that thinks they're underrated is the fact that they won their conference, both the tournament and the regular season conference title. And the fact that they're 5 seed is honestly ridiculous in my opinion. Um, so I'm gonna go with St. John's here. Yeah, I think Rick Pitino is a good coach, and I think he's gonna lead them to victory in this. So yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say.
yeah, I agree with you. With what you said about St. John's, they're really hard to kind of read right now. Like, I mean, all credit to them. Like you said, they won conference tournament in the regular season. But they're just, I mean, they're non-con. I don't, I they played some competition, but they lost all their important non-con games. They really struggled to start the season. Then they did most of their damage in the week Big East. They did go 2-1 against UConn this year, but I can't get over the fact that they lost to UConn by like 40 points, where they scored like 40 points total and hit like 12 shots. Like I don't know what that was. I didn't watch the game personally, but that's just like an anomaly. Like I've never seen anything like that beat down. And then they turn around and beat UConn by 20. So really, obviously, we'll talk about UConn later. I don't know how to feel about either of these teams. They just beat up on each other randomly and they take turns beating up on each other in a weak conference. But that being said, I'm still taking St. John's. I mean, they're a talented team. I don't see them being like a first round upset or anything, even though it's a 12-5 matchup. Don't really know anything about Northern Iowa. Every time I see Northern Iowa in the tournament, I just think of their shot that they hit a while back. I don't even remember. They're like, I think his like I remember his name being something Jesperson or something like that. He had a half court game winning buzzer beater. It's like one of the earliest March Madness memories I remember as a kid. So every time I see that team, that's what I think of. Um, but yeah, we got St. John's moving on. Next game we got the 4 versus 13 matchup, the Kansas Jayhawks versus Cal Baptist.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with Kansas here. It's obviously like kind of easy to just say Kansas. I just think they're got too much talent on their roster, and I mean, if Darian Peterson decides to play, I mean, they're gonna kill him. If he doesn't, probably a little closer, but I still think they're too talented, and they have a Hall of Fame head coach right at the helm. So I think Kansas wins this one pretty easily.
I'll go in a little bit more detail with Kansas in the next matchup, but I will go Kansas in this game as well. Moving on to the next game. We have the 6 versus 11 matchup. We have the Louisville Cardinals versus South Florida. Don't know their mascot, so I'm just going to say South Florida, but the 6 versus 11.
Yeah, so I typically like to go against the grain when it comes to these things. Unfortunately, I found out that this is the most popular upset, and I do have South Florida winning. I had South Florida winning even before the whole thing came out about Louisville's
Michael Brown.
starting point guard, yeah, not being able to play. So regardless if he played or not, I still had South Florida winning, and it kind of makes me upset that everyone else is picking this as well. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think South Florida pulls a fast one on the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I did have Louisville winning this game if they had Michael Brown healthy and both their guards. Both their guards, when they're playing together, average about 18 points a game apiece. So they're really two dynamic guards. And I think that would have been a problem in the future for Michigan State. But with that being said, and him being out, it might just turn into a one-man show. And I've heard from a lot of people that they don't have much of a front court that's, worth being, scared of or threatened of. And most of the stuff comes from their guards and then being without their best one. I'm going to take
Yeah.
South Florida in this game for the 11-6.
And to add a little bit onto Louisville too, one of my friends, he lives down there and he's a Louisville fan. He was telling me that they just are a shot chucking team. They shoot a ton of threes. I believe they're fourth in the nation in three-point attempts. And he was saying that they absolutely live and die by the three. So this is definitely a matchup where if they get hot from three, they definitely could win this game for sure. But the question is that one of the days that they actually do
And
hit
they
them?
just lost one of their best shooters. So
Yeah, so I mean, they're definitely a team that could get hot at the right time, but you live and die by the three, and that's the story of their season.
yeah, moving on, we got the 3 versus 14 matchup with our Spartans in North Dakota State. At the time when you're seeing this, that means that our preview video is already out. So we went into more depth in detail what we thought about this game. But obviously, I think you see what we're wearing. So I think we're just both going to go Michigan State in this game. But if you want to touch on it more, you can.
Um, yeah, I don't think this is gonna be a blowout like we would like it to be. Like we t if you want to watch our go watch our preview video. So I'm just gonna touch a little bit on it. I don't think it's gonna necessarily be a blowout, like other people think. But I'm pretty sure that like I read somewhere, I don't know how true or not. I think this is like a pretty popular upset as well. And I do think that like 45% of the public has North Dakota State covering the spread in this game, which I mean I kind of agree with. I hope I'm wrong. And I do pick Michigan State to win this game. I do think it's going to be an ugly win though.
All right. Well, win's a win. We'll see what happens. But moving on, we got the 7 versus 10 matchup with the UCLA Bruins, who are playing hot, versus UCF Knights, I believe. I could be wrong on that.
I
But
think they're the Golden
yeah, we got
Knights.
the 7 versus 10 matchup. Who do you got in this one, Jake?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with UCLA in this one. I think that they are a very scary team coming into March, and unfortunately, that's also a popular opinion. But they just kind of hit a stride at the right time. They're playing really well on all cylinders. Donovan Dent's gotten hot at the end of the year. Tyler Bilodeau has been very consistent every game so far this year. And I mean, their coach has already made a deep run in March to a Final Four, being a worse seed than seven. He made it as an 11 seed. So I do think this team can be very scary, especially with the stride they are hitting. So I will be taking UCLA.
Yep. So far, our brackets are identical.
Hmm.
Again, I'm going to go UCLA in this one as well. I agree with everything you said. They're playing really well. Donovan Dent's been on a tear. I don't know what the stat is up now after the Purdue game, but I know when he played Michigan State, he had some crazy assist to turnover ratio in his last couple of games. So he's scoring the ball really well. He's distributing and not turning the ball over, and he's one of those guys that has been a guard to look at for the last couple of years. Michigan State played him last year, and they might have the opportunity to play him again in March Madness. So we'll see. But I have UCLA moving on in this game as well. Moving on to the last game of the first round in the East region, we got the 2 seed UConn Huskies versus Furman. And if you don't remember, Furman's the one that had that iconic upsetting buzzer beater against Virginia a few years back. That's been all over my social media every March when it comes close to this time. But yeah, who do you got in
Still
this one?
doesn't make sense to me why that Virginia player threw the ball the way he did.
Just
Like,
launches it.
it didn't make sense to me. He threw it literally right to him, gave him a perfect opportunity to shoot it. But yeah, I'm picking UConn in this game.
Yeah, me too. Not much said, but
Yeah.
all right, moving on to the round of 32. We have Duke Blue Devils versus the hot playing Ohio State Buckeyes. Jacob, who do you got in this game?
This one's tough for me because I think this is a game that could surprise people, especially with a beat up Duke team. I know Foster is going to be out, I believe, until the second weekend. I do believe their big guy is back, though. I believe he's expected to play in the first game. He'll probably have limited minutes in the first game to save him for the round of 32. Um, I do think Duke wins this game, but I think it's going to be an extremely close game. I think they only win by like 2 to 4 points, and Ohio State really shocks people on how well they play, and Duke gets a pretty good scare.
Yeah, I think this will be a really fun game too. Interesting matchup wise, with Caleb Foster being out. Not only is he good on the offensive end, but he was also a really good perimeter defender for them. Um, and you have a guy coming in like Bruce Thornton who's been playing really hot and has just been on a tear lately, and he is a very, very high quality scorer. So now with Foster being out, you have Caden Boozer, who is going to probably be primarily guarding them all game. So I think that Bruce Thornton is going to have a very good game against that guard matchup in particular. And then you have a guy like John Mobley Jr., who plays very similar to a guy like Evans. I can't remember his first name now. I'm blanking on his first name, but two
Isn't
guys.
that Evans?
Huh? Isaiah, yeah. Two guys that like to take a lot of 3-point shots and a lot of tough 3-point shots. Two guys that are going to be running around the perimeter and taking a lot of tough shots. I think Evans is a little bit more athletic and he takes the ball in the rim a little bit more than Mobley does, but another interesting matchup to watch in that game. But at the end of the day, I think there's a very big discrepancy when it comes to each team's front court. I think that there's going to be absolutely no answer for Cam Boozer in this game. The best answer that they have for him is like a guy like Christoph Tilly, who's just kind of a soft kind of center, and I don't really see him giving Cam Boozer much of a threat. But I do agree with you. I think this is going to be a tighter game than people might think. But I still have Duke coming out with the W because I just see no answers for a guy like Boozer for Ohio State. Um, Now moving on to one of my favorite matchups of the early rounds. We have 5 seed St. John's versus the 4 seed Kansas.
For me, this is such a coin flip game. This is definitely will be a game where I have multiple different brackets of both St. John's advancing and Kansas advancing. I know Kansas has all the talent in the world, but it comes down to what Darian Peterson does because I know like he sometimes he wants to play, sometimes he doesn't want to play, and I know like that causes a rift in the locker room for one. For two, I've noticed, and some other college basketball fans have noticed that in recent games when Darian Peterson has played and he's been on the court, Kansas has been playing worse with him on the court. So I think that's something to take into account. And with that being said, I'm gonna have St. John's upsetting Kansas here, because I think Rick Pitino, phenomenal coach. Obviously, Self is also a phenomenal coach. I think Rick Pitino, though, outcoaches Bill Self in this game, and Bill Self won't be able to get all of his players on the same page. And in this game, I'm having Smarts outbeat the talent.
All right. Well, I'm kind of glad. This is one I've gone back and forth on. I've switched it a couple times already today. Um, but I'm kind of glad you went St. John's. And so now that I can finally go the opposite way, I'm going to take Kansas in this one, this particular prediction here. Like I agree with you. I think this game can go either way. I think it's going to be one of the better games of the first weekend. So I'm excited for this potential matchup. Um, I do agree with you that there's a lot of negative noise with the whole Darren Peterson situation. I don't think the chemistry in the locker room is all that great. Um, but I think it's a game where a lot of people's eyes are going to be on this game. And I think a lot of the Kansas players and Darren Peterson knows this. So I think it's going to be a game where he could potentially go off and, show why he's that, top 5 pick that he's probably slated to be, regardless of what he's been doing for the team. I think this is a big opportunity for him to kind of silence everybody that's been talking down on him. So I guess just for that kind of reason, and I'm going to go with Kansas, but I agree with you. It can go St. John's. Anyone can win this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just feel like he just genuinely doesn't care. I don't
Yeah.
think he cares about the outcome of how Kansas does. I don't think he cares about the outside noise because he knows he's still going top five in that draft regardless, and he's still probably going to end up being number one, whether we agree he should or not. But he's probably going to end up going number one, and he knows that. I don't think he necessarily gives two craps about what happens in this tournament. So
Yeah, we'll see. He'll have a chance to prove himself if this game ends up happening, but time will tell. Yeah. Moving on, we got the South Florida versus our Michigan State Spartans. So we got lucky enough in this prediction per se to face off against another double-digit seed with a chance to go to the Sweet 16. So how do you see this game going, Jake?
yeah, I think this game goes a lot smoother than our first game. I think we end up beating South Florida. Um, yeah, I like I said in the preview video, I don't like the fact that we had so much time off between our first game and our last game in the Big Ten tournament. But with 2 days or a day of rest, I really like how we would face up against South Florida. I have Michigan State winning a lot easier this round.
Yeah, I agree. Um, whether or not the first game is close and tight and uncomfortable, I still think we're going to look a lot better in the second showing. Just us getting our feet wet in the tournament. You know, getting that weight off our shoulders of the anticipation of the tournament. I think we're just going to be playing a lot smoother and have a better game plan with more confidence looking ahead, hopefully, to the Sweet 16. So I have Michigan State moving on here in a rather favorable draw to start the tournament. But moving on, we have another interesting matchup for the second round. We have both of us have UCLA facing off against UConn, the 7 versus 2 matchup. How do you see this game going?
This is another one of those games that I've been flipping back and forth on. I'm not really sure how to pick it. Um, I think UConn does come out with the win in this situation. I know you brought up a good point before we started recording this video, and I'll let you speak on it because I don't want to steal your thunder.
It's all
But
good.
I've been flipping back and forth, and yeah, especially knowing now that Donovan Dent and Tyler Bildo are both going to be healthy. UCLA and their coach or whatever Cronin has made deeper runs with less talent. Well, I guess kind of same talent, but less seed, the harder way. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna have UConn advancing to play our Spartans.
Yeah, so kind of what he was referring to, um, just did a couple like just a quick look at UCLA's just overall season, and I just know in general that they struggled away from home. Being a West Coast team playing in the Big Ten, there's going to be some struggles with that. Just doing a lot of traveling throughout the season. But if my math stands correct, it's on there, obviously, in their standings that they're 17-1 at home, great home record. That's what you should defend home court. But then they are 4-6 on the road. But 4-6 on the road doesn't sound too terrible. But when you think about it, they have the road wins that they do have are coming against other West Coast teams. So that's teams like a bad Washington team, a bad Oregon team, a bad USC team. So looking into it, they have only won 2 games that have been either on the road on the East Coast or at a neutral site, not on the West Coast. And those 2 games were this last game against Michigan State. They beat us on a neutral site in Chicago. And then the only other win that they have away from home outside of the West Coast is at Penn State. So it really worries me for a team like UCLA that will be playing 2 games in 3 days all the way on the opposite side of the country from them in Philly. And they very well could prove everybody wrong and keep playing hot and, make a run in this tournament. Because I know I've seen a lot of people picking UCLA to beat UConn in this game, beat Michigan State in the next round, make an Elite Eight run. But I just don't see it with how their season's gone. The 3 hour time difference and having to play 2 games in 3 days for them, I think it's going to be a little too much. And yes, Donovan Dent and Bilodeau are playing this game, but they could just be battling a nagging injury that they're not going to be playing like their full selves. So whether they play or not, it doesn't mean that they're fully healthy and playing up to their capabilities. So that being said, it's going to be really tough for them to beat UConn at this point for me. So I do have UConn moving on to play Michigan State in the Sweet 16. Um, so in the Sweet 16 right now, we essentially have 3 teams that are the same out of the 4. But for this matchup, you have Duke playing, St. John's to have a chance to go to the Elite Eight. Who do you have in this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Duke. I think they're gonna have a lot easier time against St. John's than what they do against Ohio State, especially with a week's worth of rest. And I'm not sure what Foster's status would be if they made it to the second weekend.
I'm pretty sure that I've been hearing all over the place that he could come back if they made the Final Four. And I
Hmm.
think that the Elite Eight would be like best case scenario, like earliest he could come back.
All right. Well, I guess regardless if Foster's playing or not, I still think Duke would beat St. John's by quite a bit. I just think they're a lot more talented than them.
Yeah. I'd really, so yeah, I have Duke and Kansas in this one. I think this will be another fun matchup. 2 historic programs going at it, 2 blue bloods. I Yep, they did play each other earlier this season on the Champions Classic, and I think Duke won pretty handily. Um, so I see something similar like that happening again. So I do have Duke moving on to the next round. I think Cam Boozer is just too much, and he's one of my favorite players to watch in the country. So I have them moving on. Excuse me. Um, and then with our next matchup, the Sweet 16, we have our Michigan State Spartans against the Yukon Huskies, who we played formally this season, just not in the regular season. We played them in our first exhibition game that didn't really go necessarily our way, which was an ugly game. If you remember, just foul, 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 foul every 2 seconds. But
Here.
with that being said, who do you got in this game, Jake?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough game, for sure. This game could be a coin flip either way, but I'm not too convinced with how UConn's been playing recently. And Michigan State before the Big Ten tournament, and when we played, I'll just say before on the Big Ten tournament, because even with the loss to Michigan, we still played really well. The last 9 of 10 games, Michigan State has been playing phenomenal, both offensively and defensively. And I think this is Izzo masterclass. And I know Dan Hurley has a lot of respect for Tom Izzo, and but I think Izzo shows him why he's where he's at. So
Yeah, I think this will be a really fun game to watch. I do not think it's going to go like it did last time. We struggled and we just couldn't hit a shot. I mean, neither team could hit a shot, but also they didn't let either team play. I think those are like one of the worst roughing games I've ever seen in my life. So hopefully they'll let us play, but I think it's rather um, what was whereas I mean it's rather lucky, I guess I'll say, for UConn that they're a team that lost their regular season conference and the conference tournament, and they were still gifted a 2 seed. Um, that's just kind of crazy to me. I think they've been playing pretty mid all season and kind of worse towards the end of the season. Played in a really bad conference where they really only have one other good team, and that's St. John's. It was basically them and St. John's the whole season. Um, and St. John's beat them twice, and St. John's is only a 5 seed. And then we talked about St. John's earlier, obviously how we don't know how to read them, but this UConn team played everyone in their conference almost every game. It felt like it was close down to the wire, and they just could like hardly pull away and put teams away. I just, that just gives me the utmost confidence that Michigan State, because Michigan State tends to play to whatever competition that they're playing most of the time, whether that be up to the best competition they're in those games or down and they play down to their competition. I think this is one of those games where they play up to UConn and it's going to be a tight and close game. But I think Michigan State pulls away at the end. Um, I know we're biased, but I honestly think that's how the game's going to go if it happens. I think Michigan State gets in the second go around. So I have Michigan State moving on to the Elite Eight to play Duke. And finally, we have our Michigan State Spartans in the Elite Eight playing the Duke Blue Devils. The last time we saw these two teams play in the Elite Eight was when we had Cassius Winston, Xavier Tillman, and Matt McQuaid, all those guys, and Duke on the other side, Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and
Cam Reddish.
Cam Reddish. Thank you. One
And
of the
that's
best
not
Duke
even
teams.
it's not even including Trey Jones, who was
Ray Jones, yep.
super underrated for them. They also had a center that was pretty good too. But yeah, like you were saying,
Laurier. But yeah,
yeah.
that game, probably my favorite Michigan State basketball game I've ever watched. I'll never forget that game. Um, but yeah, so without further ado, Jacob, how do you see this game going?
Yeah, so I mean, if this matchup were to happen again in the Elite Eight, I just want to say that last time we faced Duke in the Elite Eight in 2019, that it took place in Washington, D.C. This year, if we were to make it to the Elite Eight, it would be in Washington, D.C. So I think
You
with
said
my
rather two. I don't want to cut you off, but you said two contradicting things today. It was funny. We were talking earlier. You said it was our 10-year anniversary the day that we lost to Middle Tennessee State. but it's also we're playing Duke in the Elite Eight in Washington D.C. where we went to the Final Four. So we either go to the Final Four or we lose in the first round. So we'll
I mean,
see.
based on history, yeah, like off camera, I was telling Bolden that this is a 10-year anniversary
That's
of when we were the 2 seed losing to Middle Tennessee State. But yeah, so I mean, if we played Duke, it'd be kind of crazy to meet Duke in the Elite Eight in the same city. And I'm going to say it's going to be the same result. I think we see another Izzo masterclass with top 3 point guard in the nation at his helm and with a couple good big men right by his side as well, right under Jeremy. So I'm gonna say go green, and we see Tom Izzo's ninth Final Four.
gosh, dude, what I would do for that. Ugh. To be another one of Duke's best teams, like being a guy like Cam Boozer going to the Final Four, being a guy like Zion Williamson, those generational talents that just like that'd be something crazy. Like we Duke obviously has our number over the years, and we struggle against them just because they're always stacked team after stacked team after stacked team. Um, but yeah, with that being said, we did play them earlier this year at the Breslin. Me and Jacob were both in attendance for that game. It was a very hard fought game, back and forth, very physical game, low scoring game. We had the lead most of the game. Thought it was going to go our way towards the end, but then at the end, we just kind of let slip a little bit. We started defending Boozer a little bit differently. I remember in the first half we were doubling them and we were letting other guys beat us, and it was working out well for us. We did really good in the first half. We held the 2 points in the first half. He didn't score until like the last 3 minutes of the first half. Like he had nothing. And then the second half, we started going one on one against him, and then he started eating. So if we go to a similar play style like we did in the first half against Duke, um, the first time we played him, I think we could have success, especially if they're without their starting point guard. I think Jeremy Fears can really abuse Caden Boozer. And Jeremy Fears, last time we played them, he shot like 0 for 10 or something. He had a lot of assists, but he had one of his worst games of the season after encouraging the crowd to F Cam Boozer, and he didn't make a single shot. So I think this is a big opportunity for Michigan State to get their get back and make a name for themselves and shut up the little brother stuff because we already predicted Michigan to lose in the Elite Eight and not make the Final Four. With that being said, this is a Michigan State podcast. I don't care what you guys say, but Michigan State is going back to the Final Four, and Tom Izzo is going to be named Mr. March yet again. We got January, February, Izzo, baby. So, with that being said, me and Jacob have our Final Four set, and I believe we still only have one team different. Our
Yep.
brackets are damn near identical. I got my Final Four being Duke versus Florida, and then Arizona
Dude, you just said
versus
Michigan
Iowa.
State was going to win.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just had a Freudian slip. Sorry. Michigan State versus Florida, and then Arizona, Iowa State. I apologize. But yeah, that is my Final Four.
Yep. And then my Final Four is Michigan State versus Houston, and then Arizona State versus Iowa State.
Alrighty. So yeah, with that being said, that'll do it for our region predictions. We will have a short video coming out in the near future with our Final Four predictions as well as our national championship picks. But other than that, we are signing out and ready to watch some basketball tomorrow. But let's go green, baby.
All right.